Hello everyone, I'm here with a share about some decks that I used for inner child work. I just finished at the end of September a 3-month exploration that I was doing with my Mighty Networks community on creativity and the inner child. For those of you who maybe don't know, I have a creative community on Mighty Networks, and we do different explorations for 3 months at a time. So the most recent one was creativity and the inner child, but I have also done journaling exploration to reclaim ourselves, as well as a creating with the moon exploration. So these are some of the decks that I have in my collection, which I think are good for inner child work. They're not in any order, in any like special order. This is the Whimsical Tarot. I don't have the box anymore, but it is a deck that has, it's a fairy tale deck. So there's different stories in each of the cards. I got this one pre-owned, so I don't have the box or the little white book. And some of the stories I don't recognize, but some of them I do. Like this is Hansel and Gretel. So this one is just a cute deck that feels, it's very playful. It's so that's why I think it's a good deck for inner child work. And I've had it for a while. Originally I was going to give it to one of my daughters. She did keep it for a few days, but she wasn't super interested in it. So we have started using the Tarot for Kids, which I shared a flip through of recently. So yeah, this is one of the decks. It's the Whimsical Tarot, and it is by US Games, so you can definitely find it on Amazon or US Games. I like the vibe that I get from the deck. It's very soft, very childlike. So this is one of the decks that I have in my collection that would be good for inner child work. And I forgot to mention my crystals. This is a rose quartz sphere. Rose quartz is one of the crystals that I think are good. I'm trying to get this to focus. One of the crystals that I like to use for inner child work, and this is Celestite. The zoom on this is pretty bad. Sorry about that. I might just stop fussing with it. Next up, oh, and this is it's a little toy that I got in one of those surprise bags, and I actually bought it when I think I bought it in July. So I follow the birth chart as a harvest cycle using the Book of Houses. I will do a review of that book. I'll show you the book. I mention this book all the time, and I will do a video explaining what it is and how I use it. Anyway, the 5th house in your birth chart is the house of the inner child. And when you are going through your 5th house, that's when you can work with your creativity and inner child. So when I was going through that part of my birth chart, I felt really interested in just cute things. So I bought this little guy, and now he's part of my inner child kit. And then these are some branches. I think this branch is from Arizona. And then this is a cottonwood branch, and you're not gonna be able to see, but it has a star there in the, oh, this one looks better. All cottonwood branches have a star in the center. So that's kind of part of the inner child work for me, is just finding things in nature that still make you be surprised by nature and by life. The next deck I want to mention is the Fairy Tale Tarot by Lisa Hunt. This is a Spanish version, El Tarot de los Cuentos de Hadas. So this one and the Whimsical Tarot are pretty similar because they're both fairy tale decks. But the art on this one is much more striking, and I wouldn't say it's like a super soft, gentle deck, because there are some stories here that are not, that are scary, you know. It comes with a really great guidebook that tells you about the stories. So that's one reason why I was interested in working with this deck. One, I like to work with fairy tales, and two, I like the art by Lisa Hunt. I have another of her decks, the Ghost and Spirits Tarot, and then I have the Animals Divine app. So I really do like her artwork. And I've used this deck a few times, and there's a lot of fairy tales that I was not familiar with, and they're not all like Grimm's fairy tales or European fairy tales. Like this one, I think it's an Indian fairy tale, so it's also a good way to learn about different stories. So that's the Fairy Tale Tarot by Lisa Hunt. I think any deck that has this like fairy tale element would be great for tarot, for inner child work. So that's that one. Next up, I have the Joy de Vivre Tarot. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's by Paulina Cassidy. And I know this lady has a few decks that she's made. I really like this deck. At first when I got it, I didn't think that I would like it. It didn't seem like my style of tarot. Not my tarot aesthetic, I guess. But as I started using it, I found that it has a really different voice than other decks. And I was getting really clear messages, like just looking at the characters, I was getting a very clear message from them, like they were speaking to me, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed this one, even though they are a little creepy, you know, but they have that childlike vibe, and at least in my opinion. So I really enjoyed this deck. I'm glad I got it. I think it's also a pre-owned deck that I bought from someone who was moving it along, and it's just really beautiful. Let's see, I'm not gonna play with this so many more, but it's just a really beautiful deck. There's a lot of different things to look at. The posture and the expressions and the characters' faces give you a lot of information when you're doing readings. So definitely a favorite, not just for inner child work. See, look at this guy's face. Not just for inner child work, but I do think this one lends itself really well to inner child work. This is the white rabbit from, it looks like the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. This one doesn't have like a story fairy tale connection, but each of the characters does have a name in the little white book. So you are invited to go into their world and see what they have to say. So that's the Joy de Vivre Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. And up next I have the Sakisaki Tarot. I have the mini version. And this one is very creepy. So this is more of a shadow work deck. And the way that I approach inner child work is not all fun and games, I guess you would say. There are shadow components that come up as you're doing shadow work. So this is why one of the ways that I use this deck. It's also a really great deck for, they're all upside down. for just like, I think, dream work. The images are really dreamy. This is definitely an adult deck though, because if I saw some of these images as a child, I would freak out. I would just have nightmares probably. Even though I have the mini version, I would like to get the bigger, normal, regular size deck because the images are just so rich. But what I like about the mini deck is that you can lay down a lot of cards and they're not super large, so you can fit a lot of cards in a frame, like if you're taking a picture. But yeah, so that's the Sakisaki Tarot by, I think the artist name is Sakisaki, but it's made by Los Carabillo. And this is a shadow work and inner child deck that I have used. Let's see. I also wanted to share the Sakisaki Tarot. My children got to the box. I've had this deck for a long time, and when my girls were little, one of them ripped the box. So this deck is really good for creative work, but it's also good for inner child work, I think, because of the images and how playful they are. Let's see if I still in the frame here. Sorry, they're all upside down. So it does follow the Rider-Waite-Smith system, but the colors and the feeling and the vibe from the deck is pretty different. But this is one of my most treasured decks. And I know there's like a Halloween version, like a zombie Sakisaki Tarot. I just think it's very playful, and it lends itself to that inner child vibe that I look for in a deck. And it has a really great guidebook as well. See, that's the Lovers. Most of the people, sometimes they don't have heads, sometimes they have faces that are a little weird looking. So yeah, it just has that playful inner child vibe, in my opinion, and it's so colorful, and it just looks so pretty. I really love the Empress. It looks so pretty when you when you lay them out. Not all the cards are super colorful with like bright colors. Oh, can't see them. And let's try this zoom thing. I don't know if that worked. Anyway, so that's the Sakisaki Tarot. I'll just show the box. Obviously, I think this one is a really great one for inner child work. It's the Tarot for Kids. But I did a flip through of it, so I'm not gonna share it again. Another deck that I think is really good for tarot, for inner child work, is the Lost Code Tarot. Let me open that up. I have used this deck quite a bit, and it turns out that it's a really good deck for storytelling. Okay, there we go. So it's a pip deck, but the people cards are really interesting and really different than anything else I have. So that helps me just kind of get out of the, it's a very out of the box deck. And I think it's, even though it has a different color palette than the Sakisaki Tarot. I think it gives me the same vibe as the Sakisaki Tarot. Maybe it's because it's an artistic deck, so the faces and the bodies are not super human looking. But it is a pip deck, so some of the cards will look the same. And then the book comes with it comes with a pretty big book, and there's like a story that the author is telling. This writer and author has a few other decks that have been on my wish list. One of them has 2 decks in one set, Light and Day and Night Tarot, I think it's called. And it is on my list because I just like the voice that this deck had, and how when I read with it, I kind of get this like storytelling vibe from it. So that's the Last Code Tarot. And those are all the decks I wanted to share. From inner child work, I usually tend to like fairy tale decks, also decks that spark my creativity, decks that are different. Would be my recommendation for inner child work, decks that help you do storytelling. And because I do think that as we start working with our inner child, that we end up uncovering some maybe memories from childhood that are not all unicorns and bunnies. So having a deck that you can do shadow work with is a good idea. And for me, that's the Chicoli Tarot. So let me know in the comments, what are your favorite inner child decks? Have you done inner child work? And I will stop playing with Zoom here. Now it's all messed up. Thank you for watching this video, and my next video might be a review of the... This one is bothering me. There. Thank you for tuning in to today's video, and my next video might be a review of the Book of Houses, so stay tuned for that. Thank you.